Europe is also pushing Israel to agree on terms for a post-war future. The European Parliament has adopted a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire. But the resolution contains the stipulation that Hamas, designated as a terrorist group by the EU, must be first dismantled. And that all Israeli hostages kidnapped by Hamas during the October 7th terror attacks on southern Israel must be released. The resolution also calls for renewed efforts to find a lasting political solution to the conflict. Let's get more now from Brussels, DW Brussels correspondent Jack Parek. Jack, sorry for messing that intro up, but how significant is this resolution by the European Parliament calling for a Gaza ceasefire?
Yeah, it's pretty significant symbolically, but practically and legally not very significant at all. The 312 MEPs of the 705 in the European Parliament voted in favour. There were a number of abstentions and also a number of no-shows as well. So it's not like a massively overwhelming majority. And like I say, it doesn't legally bind the European Union. It isn't an overall EU position. This is not a vote by the governments of the European Union. And as you mentioned, the stipulations that the centre-right politicians within the European Parliament insisted on, which was the call for the dismantling of the Hamas terrorist organisation and the release of all hostages, those conditions to get the vote over the line, which meant that many of them voted in favour, were what the Israelis were basically saying that they could accept this vote, that they would want a permanent ceasefire. We've heard that from the Israeli mission to the European Union. They've said that this vote basically falls in line, that they want a permanent ceasefire if Hamas is dismantled and if all of the hostages are released.
So, Jack, this was a resolution of the EU Parliament, but does that mean that member states are also united on this issue?
Not really, no. That's where we're seeing real divisions. The European Parliament, there were obviously a number of people voting against it in the Parliament as well. But the EU countries, so the 27 countries of the European Union, are divided. We're seeing countries like Ireland and Belgium, for instance, who are very keen for a ceasefire, have also considered backing South Africa's claim for the look into accusations of genocide by Israel in Gaza at the International Court of Justice, that case taking place last week. Other countries, for instance, Germany, are much closer in line with the Israeli position of the right to self-defense. All countries say that Israel has the right to defend itself, but others are putting, and for instance, Ireland and Belgium are putting significant pressure on the European Union to put pressure on the Israelis to bring about a ceasefire.
I mean, you did call this resolution significant, but how much influence does the EU really have with Israel right now, given that we've just seen Israel publicly defying its closest and most powerful ally, the United States?
I don't think there's any delusions here in Brussels or in the sort of corridors of power in the European Union that the real power and the real influence on the Israeli government comes from the United States. But they don't want to step back from this issue because they firstly have, strong ties. There is a strong sentiment among EU citizens on this issue as well. So they don't want to stay disengaged. They don't want to look like they're disengaging in any way while they're aware probably that resolutions like this aren't really going to put too much influence on the Israeli government, which as I say, is really looking to its strongest supporter and strongest ally in the United States.
Jack Parek, we'll leave it there, but thanks so much for that context.